Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. That's Ready Homeschool. My name is Mrs. T, and you can't see him right now, but I picked this spot specifically. There he is. Because Pudge was sitting here. So this is Pudge, and he is here to help me today with my video. So today I wanted to share with you 5 things that I have learned here since starting homeschooling my second child. So I feel like now that I have a little bit of experience, but specifically experience tied to starting my second child, I wanted to share with you some of the things that I have learned. So the very first thing here is that, I knew that my kids were very different personality-wise, and I knew that there was going to be a period of time, and really it's like an ongoing learning process where I have to learn how my children learn and process information. However, before starting my second child, I guess I kind of assumed that that would mean that difference in personality would pretty much automatically equate to quite a bit of curriculum being different between my 2 kids. And while I can foresee that maybe being the case a little bit more as they get older, I definitely have learned here with my younger kids that that is not the case. Teaching should be adapted and curriculum not necessarily just tossed out the window because your kids are different. And that has been a learning point for me, is basically learning how powerful it is to adapt my teaching as opposed to adapting the actual programs. I think that there's a lot that can be said from a teaching perspective and a successful homeschool to not always rely on the curriculum to speak to your child, but rather to try to have your teaching speak to your individual children. So I kind of learned that. I started to get a little bit more, I'm starting to get a little bit more experience with that. My kids are still very young, so I know we have a long way to go with this kind of teaching adaptation learning style, but I do think that it kind of dawned on me that curriculum is not a one-size-fits-all, but it is a one-size can fit many. It's not one-size-fits-one, it is one size can fit many. So I do think that there's going to be a lot of curriculum that we can use with my teaching being adapted rather than needing to pick new programs, if that makes sense. So that's kind of the first thing that I learned. Now, the other thing, when I was going into homeschooling here, before I even started with my first child, I did so much research into homeschool. I read a lot of different books. I talked to homeschoolers that I happened to meet at the park locally, at different groups. I also watched a lot of content here on the internet. I consumed blogs. There's just a lot of information input. And I got really excited to homeschool. And basically everything that I was reading, well, not everything, there are different opinions on this, but a lot of the stuff that I was reading, I got so excited to do it all that I was like, I'm going to start at the preschool age of 3 with my kids. And I wish that I did not just start and rush to start based on my excitement and kind of the expectation that I was seeing in these different locations. I wish that I considered more the personality and the readiness of my child. So, for example, I started both of them when they were in their 3s, but my oldest one was not ready at that point. I wish I waited for him to show more signs of school readiness rather than getting too excited and pulling in the content and having him do his work, his preschool work at that age. I wish I waited. Now, child number 2 was ready, was very much so clearly ready at 3. He was asking for school. He was sitting down at the table waiting for school while my older child was doing his work. So the readiness was definitely there for child number 2. It was not there for child number 1. And I wish that I had the foresight to tell myself, or I wish that I had the knowledge and the wisdom to tell myself, wait for these signs of readiness and embrace it then. That readiness is going to be the key to the successful homeschool year. It's going to be less stressful. It's going to be less feel less like a failure if you wait for that readiness. So waiting is key, and that's the second thing that I learned. Okay, the third thing that I've kind of learned here is I bought way too much curriculum early on. I way overspent, and I didn't really fully wrap my head around the full cost of homeschooling with the way I was spending for my first child, and for starting with my first child. So, you know, when you look at like a math curriculum and like, oh, this is $100. Well, it's $100 for a single year, but you know, on average, you might be spending up to 14 years worth of math for one kid. Now you're also going to be using it for a second kid. So like, there are things that you definitely need to consider when starting to buy curriculum that I feel like I didn't do very well with my first. I feel like I'm definitely more cost aware, and look at you. I feel like I'm more cost aware with my second child than I was with my first, and I wish I really had a better understanding of how much homeschooling can cost. Now, I do think there's a way to do homeschooling affordably. There's a lot of very good resources for free out there, such as Core Knowledge. And I wish I didn't I didn't poo-poo it, but I didn't like embrace those free resources as much as I should have. I got really excited about specific other content, such as like Blossom and Root, where I was like, yeah, this is the way to go. I'm so excited to do this. I'm gonna buy this huge bundle. And it ended up being, one, not the right fit for our school, for us. But two, it's just too much. And I take a look, I'm like, oh my gosh, cost-wise for a whole year, 3 years, whatever, it just was too much. And so I wish that I considered budgeting earlier on and understood that budgeting. So I feel like I'm getting kind of a better understanding about it. I will be definitely talking about, I will be doing a budgeting video with my learning a budget. So I'm not an expert on budgeting, but I'm going to be talking about that in a future video. But number 3 that I learned is the importance of the cost and understanding the cost of my purchases. All right, which kind of sort of relates to the fourth thing that I learned. The last 2 years for my older one, and now this past year for my second child, I feel like I way overscheduled and way overplanned my my child's day. So I got way too much curriculum, again, kind of relating to overbuying, about way too much curriculum, and I also came up with too many play dates, too many things to do, and I way overscheduled and way overplanned for my child. And here's the thing, for me, having a schedule is important. Having a flow is important. Having play dates and things like that is important. But I have noticed that it is just detrimental to the success of the school year if I have overscheduled and overplanned, because ultimately, especially for my personality, it can be so disheartening, you guys, to have like a list of things you want to accomplish and only check off like 2 or 3 of them, right? It could be overwhelming to feel like you're behind on a bunch of curriculum and behind on your schedule. And there's this feeling that there's a feeling I start putting too much pressure on myself as the teacher, but also I feel like I probably started to put too much pressure on my child, which is ridiculous. Like, my kids are too young for something like that. And I definitely have learned that planning is good, but over planning, over scheduling can be dangerous. And so that is something I'm still kind of working through. I'm very much so a plan-oriented individual, but being more realistic about the plan, that is something I've learned, and that's going to come with experience. It's going to come with actually doing homeschooling, and everybody's plan, everybody's schedule is going to be completely different for what works for their family. So like, when I was planning originally what we wanted to do, I consumed a lot of like content here on YouTube, and I got some great ideas, but just because that worked for family A or family B doesn't mean it was going to work for us. And I'm glad that I've learned the importance of this early on, and next year, as I plan for the 2025 to 2026 school year, I really am going to try to rein it in. There's a lot of content out there, There's a lot of great curriculum, but we don't have time to do it all. And I don't want to do it all. I need to remind myself, like, it's okay to pick a couple of things and never try others. It's okay to see another family do that and get excited for them and like, that looks so cool. But it's not the right fit for us because we already have something that is working. We don't need to add more to our schedule. It is okay to miss things. It is okay to not overplan. So that is, I guess, number 4. All right, and then the last thing that I kind of want to talk about here is while you're homeschooling, things are going to go very smoothly sometimes. Things are going to be rough other times. Things are going to be boring some days, and things are going to be exciting other days. And one of the things that I've learned is despite the day-to-day, the overall, how things are going overall, whether you are having a pattern of difficult times or a pattern of really good school, that is not the result of curriculum. I'm just going to say it. I feel like I was giving curriculum too much credit when things were going well, and I was blaming curriculum too much when things were not. And reality is, you guys, curriculum is a tool and it's a resource for teaching, but there are so many other things that really play more critical role in whether or not your school day or school weeks are successful or not. So for example, I think that, routine, consistency, these things play a much larger role in how your homeschool is going than the actual content you are teaching. Call me crazy. But I think that, again, there are so many different programs out there that I do think that the success and the implementation of it is more often tied to the success of the actual teaching and consistency. Now, that is not to say that there aren't good fits. I definitely think that there is curriculum that you will know, like me, that's like, oh, this is not a good fit for our family. It doesn't mean that the curriculum failed. It's not a good fit. There's maybe you need more instruction, maybe you need less, maybe you need a wholly different style of instruction. I definitely think that there's a time for sure to reevaluate and select different curriculum, but I don't think that just because you're having a rough patch, I think step 1 before blaming the curriculum is to take a real hard look at the consistency, the schedule, and the teaching itself. And sometimes that means, there's the hard truth where sometimes how we are teaching is not what our kids need, and we need to change and evaluate and adapt. And that sometimes feels a little bit cruddy. It's like, oh, that's not really the best feeling, but being able to recognize that and change how we are approaching things and, change our consistency, that is what I think helps result in a very successful school year, as opposed to putting the blame on the curriculum or curriculum hopping. I don't think curriculum hopping is the right solution all the time. Again, there's going to be a time and a place when, you need to change curriculum, but curriculum hopping is not, just because things aren't going smoothly, that's not necessarily always going to be the best solution. So I learned that this past year. That was interesting. But anyway, just a small little video. I just want to share some of my reflections here with homeschooling my second child, things that I kind of realize now after 2 years now under my belt, which is not very much, so take what I say with a grain of salt here. But comment down below, let me know some of the things that you learned. Let me know if any of these reflections were kind of like these light bulb, aha moments for you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day, and I will talk to you later. Bye, everyone.